You broke their brain, not with drama, not with a scene or an ultimatum or any of the loud, memorable moments that people typically point to when they are trying to explain why someone got under their skin in a way that will not come out. You broke it quietly in the specific, completely unintentional way that you break everything by simply being exactly who you are in front of someone who was not remotely prepared for the combination. Because you are a combination and not a simple one, not the kind that resolves itself quickly into something legible and categorizable and safely filed away in someone's mental index of people they have encountered. You are the kind of combination that sits in a person's head like an unsolved equation, like a song with a chord change they cannot anticipate no matter how many times they listen. Like a door that looks like it should open inward but opens outward every single time, just when they think they have figured out the mechanism. They figured you out. And then you did the other thing. And now they are back at the beginning, except with more information and somehow more confused than before they had it. Stay with me, Virgo, because this reading is not about who you are to the universe in some grand cosmic sense. It is about something much more immediate and much more entertaining than that. It is about what you are doing to a specific person's nervous system right now in real time without even trying. And I think you are going to enjoy every word of it. Let me describe the moment it started. The moment this person's brain made its first attempt to file you and failed. They saw you in a context. Whatever context applies to your particular situation, a shared space, a conversation, an encounter of whatever form the first real encounter between you took. And in that context, you were one thing, a specific, clear, completely readable thing that gave them the comfortable sense of understanding who they were dealing with. Maybe you were warm, disarmingly, unexpectedly warm in a way that made them lean in immediately, that made the space between you feel safe without any negotiation being required. The kind of warm that makes people say things they did not plan to say and then feel fine about having said them. The sweet little princess energy, if we are naming it, genuine, open. The specific quality of someone who has not built walls between their interior and the people they encounter because they have not needed walls in the same way other people have. They clocked it, they cataloged it, they thought, I understand this person, I know what this is. And they relaxed, which was the mistake. Because then something happened. Maybe someone crossed a line. Maybe someone in the space said something that required a response. Maybe a situation arose that could not be navigated with warmth alone and needed something else entirely. Maybe they themselves said something, not intending to test anything, and were simply present for what came back. And what came back was not what they cataloged. What came back was the other thing, the spiritual gangster energy, if we are naming that too. The part of you that sees clearly, that does not flinch, that has an interior stillness that is not the stillness of someone who has not been through things, but the stillness of someone who has been through enough things to have stopped being surprised by what people show you when they stop. Being careful. The part of you that can look directly at something uncomfortable and name it without the social lubrication of softening it first. The part of you that is, in the most precise and non threatening use of the word, dangerous. Not dangerous in a way that harms anyone. Dangerous in the way that total clarity is dangerous to people who are accustomed to navigating relationships in the comfortable fog of partial honesty. Dangerous in the way that someone who genuinely cannot be manipulated is dangerous to people who have learned, consciously or not, to rely on a degree of manipulation to get what they want. Dangerous like a clean mirror. They did not expect the mirror, and the expression on their face in the moment the mirror appeared, that specific involuntary half-second look of someone who has just encountered something they were not equipped for, is the moment this whole thing started. Um, Let me speak to what happened inside them in the aftermath of that moment, because the immediate reaction was only the beginning of the process that is still running in them right now. The first thing they did was try to reconcile, to fit both versions of you into a single coherent picture that made sense. The warmth and the clarity, the openness and the precision, the sweetness that made them feel safe, and the sharpness that made them understand suddenly and without ambiguity that the safety they felt was something you were offering, not something you required. That the warmth was generous and not naive. That the open door was open by choice and could be closed by choice, and that the choice was entirely yours. The reconciliation failed. Not because the two things are actually contradictory. They are not in you. They are not only compatible but inseparable, each one making the other more powerful than it would be alone. The warmth would be ordinary without the clarity underneath it. The clarity would be cold without the warmth that surrounds it. Together, they produce something that has no easy template in most people's experience of other human beings. But the reconciliation failed in their mind because their mind was reaching for a template and finding none. You do not fit the templates they have. And the absence of a template is what keeps pulling their attention back, because the brain, faced with something it cannot categorize, does not simply accept the uncategorizability and move on. It keeps returning, keeps trying, keeps holding the unsolved equation up to different lights to see if a new angle reveals a solution. The new angles keep revealing more of you instead. Let me tell you specifically what they keep coming back to. The details that cycle through whatever mental space is currently occupied by the project of figuring you out. The first is the switch, that specific moment, whenever it occurred, when the energy shifted from the warmth to the clarity. Not a dramatic shift. You did not become a different person or announce a change in register or perform anything for their benefit. You simply responded to what was in front of you with what the situation required. But from the outside, from where they were standing, watching the transition happen in real time, it had the quality of watching someone reach into a pocket and produce something unexpected. The pocket looked too small. The thing that came out of it was too large. They have replayed that moment more times than they would be comfortable admitting to you or to anyone. The second thing they keep coming back to is the aftermath. Because after the clarity came through, after the mirror appeared and reflected back, whatever it reflected back, you returned to warm, without drama, without lingering in the register that had just demonstrated itself, simply back to the version of you that had been present before, as though both things were equally natural to you, equally available, equally yours, as though the switch cost you nothing, because it was not a switch at all, just different rooms in the same house that you moved between without thinking about it. That return to warm is what really broke their brain, because they wanted to stay on guard. The appropriate response to encountering something that surprised them was caution, some protective distance while they recalibrated, an adjustment in how much they opened to you until they had a better map. But the warmth did not let them stay on guard. It was too real, too specific, too clearly not a strategy. So they found themselves simultaneously unable to trust their initial read of you and unable to resist the pull of what made them lean in the first place, wanting to be careful and being incapable of it. Knowing that something about you required a different quality of attention than they were used to giving, and not knowing what that quality was, just stuck in the most pleasant and maddening possible way. Does this feel like someone specific, Virgo? Have you watched this happen in real time with someone that specific look of recalibration, that moment where you could almost see the mental filing system failing? Have you felt the particular energy of someone who is trying to be strategic around you and finding that every strategy dissolves when the warmth kicks back in? Let me know in the comments. Tell me what the moment was. Tell me what you did or said or were that made someone look at you like you were a problem they genuinely did not know how to solve. Because I feel so many of you know exactly the moment I am describing. Let me speak now to what this combination does over time, because the immediate effect is confusion. But the sustained effect, what happens in a person after they have been around you long enough to have the experience of the combination repeatedly rather than just once, is something different. It becomes a standard. The specific, completely involuntary, not consciously chosen standard by which they begin to measure other people and other connections, not because they decided to use you as a reference point, but because the brain, having encountered something that exceeded its existing categories, builds a new category around the thing that exceeded them. And the new category, once built, is what gets used for comparison going forward, which means that after you, other people are going to feel like they are missing something. Not because you are in competition with anyone, not because you are trying to occupy that position in their measurement system, but because warmth without depth is going to feel thin to them now. Because sharpness without warmth is going to feel cold. Because the particular integration of both that you embody without effort has become the thing they know is possible in a person because they have encountered it in you. And the knowing that it is possible makes its absence elsewhere impossible to fully ignore. You are the new baseline, installed without your permission, running in the background of their experience of everyone else. You are the source. That is why they cannot get you out of their head. Let me speak to something that makes this even more specific. What happens when this person tries to talk about you to someone else? Because they have tried at some point in the process of trying to resolve the unsolved equation of you, they have attempted to describe the experience of encountering you to someone who was not there, a friend, a person they trust with the more complicated contents of their interior life, someone they thought might help them make sense of what they are carrying. The description came out wrong. Not because they lack the words in general, But because the words available for describing what you are do not add up to the full picture, they can describe the warmth, they can describe the precision. But when they try to put them together in a way that captures what it actually feels like to be in the presence of both simultaneously in the same person, moving between them without warning and without effort, the words flatten it into something that sounds simpler than it is, something that sounds like a character sketch rather than a person. The person they were telling listened, nodded, said something understanding, and they felt immediately that the understanding was incomplete because you cannot hand you to someone in a description. You can only be encountered, and the encounter is the thing that cannot be replicated in language, which is why the person trying to put it into words keeps failing. And the failure to put it into words is itself part of what keeps the experience alive in them. What cannot be fully described cannot be fully processed and set aside. You remain in their interior world unprocessed, present, returning, refusing to resolve into something small enough to file. Inhale. I want to speak to something about how you carry this combination that I feel is important and that goes beyond what it does to other people. You do not perform it. That is the thing about you that makes the combination as powerful as it is. It is not curated. It is not the result of a deliberate strategy about how to present yourself in relationships or in social situations or in the specific context of whatever exists between you and the person I have been describing. It simply is. The warmth is real, the clarity is real, the movement between them is as natural to you as breathing because both of them come from the same source, the deeply, quietly, unshakably integrated interior life that you have built through whatever you have walked through to get to where you are. You are not playing two roles. You are one person who contains more than one dimension. You are not playing two roles. You are one person who contains more than one dimension. And I want to speak to what that feels like from the inside. Because the outside perspective, the effect you produce in other people, the broken filing systems, the new baselines being installed without your permission, is only half the story. The other half is what it is like to be you, to inhabit this particular combination on an ordinary Tuesday, to move through your life carrying both of these things simultaneously without finding them contradictory, because from the inside they never have been. The warmth does not feel like a performance you put on before the clarity comes out. The clarity does not feel like a mask that drops to reveal the real you. They are not sequential. They are not oppositional. They exist in you the way two instruments exist in a piece of music distinctly audible when you listen closely, but experienced as a single sound when you are not analyzing. When you are simply in the room, being what you are, both things are present at once. People just notice them at different moments, depending on what the situation calls forward. What you experience as being yourself, other people experience as being surprised. Every time, because what feels completely natural from the inside is to the outside completely unpredictable. And unpredictability in a person who is otherwise warm and inviting and clearly not constructed for effect produces a kind of fascination that has very little to do with strategy and everything to do with the fact that you are genuinely, structurally interesting. Not interesting because you are trying to be interesting, because you are both things genuinely without the seam showing. And the rarity of that, the genuine rarity, in a world where most people present a flattened version of themselves in order to be legible to the people around them, is precisely what makes you impossible to file away and impossible to stop thinking about. They are not stuck on a mystery, they are stuck on a wholeness. And wholeness in a person is one of the most magnetic things there is, because most people spend their lives feeling like they are missing something in themselves. And then they encounter someone who appears to have found the missing thing, or rather, never lost it, and the encounter produces an almost gravitational pull toward the source. You are the source. That is why they cannot get you out of their head. Let me bring this home now, because I do not want to leave you only with the flattering portrait of your effect on someone else without also leaving you with something true about what this means and what to do with it. You are not responsible for managing what you do to people simply by being who you are. I say that because I feel something in your energy that sometimes reaches for that responsibility. The Virgo tendency to take inventory of your own impact and ask whether you could have been less, less warm so they did not lean in quite so far, less sharp so they did not feel quite so seen, less fully yourself so the encounter was more manageable for everyone involved. Put that inventory down. You are not too much. You are not the right amount of the wrong things, or the wrong amount of the right things, or any configuration of yourself that requires adjustment for the comfort of people who find the full version of you difficult to hold in a single category. You are simply whole, and wholeness asks nothing to be done differently. What it asks is that the people who cannot hold it find their way to building a larger capacity. That is their work, not yours. Your work is to keep being exactly what you are without the apology that sometimes tries to sneak in after the clarity comes through, without the overcorrection toward extra warmth designed to offset the impression of sharpness, without the self-monitoring that asks whether you gave them too much of one thing or not enough of the other. They are in their head about you because you were fully yourself. That is the only explanation required. Leave me a comment below. Tell me which one came first for you, the princess or the gangster. Tell me about the moment someone looked at you like you were something they could not solve. Tell me what it feels like to have both of these things living in you, sometimes in the same breath. Every comment, every story, I read them all. I carry every one. Until next time, Virgo, you broke their brain, not on purpose, just by being both things at once. And the both of it, the full, unedited, completely integrated both of it, is the most extraordinary thing about you. It always has been.